Right now, it feels like literally all we hear about is the loneliness epidemic. You know the headlines, right? Everyone is feeling isolated and disconnected. But what if you're actually moving in the exact opposite direction? What if you've recently found yourself intentionally cutting certain people out of your life and opting for silence instead? I mean, it sounds totally contrary to what we're quote-unquote supposed to be doing, doesn't it? Well, in today's Explainer, we're going to dive deep into the psychology behind this choice. We'll unpack why stepping back from draining people isn't actually an act of cruelty. It's a deeply ingrained survival mechanism.
Think about it. If you've ever ended a toxic or draining relationship, society kind of expects you to feel guilty. People might even call you cold or tell you you're heartless for just walking away. But ask yourself this, why is it that when you finally disconnect from those loud, demanding dynamics, the primary emotion you feel isn't regret, it's immense relief. It's a strangely peaceful feeling, almost like someone finally switched off a blaring alarm in your living room. So why does your mind reward you with peace instead of punishing you with guilt?
That brings us to Section 1, the 3 a.m. listener. Let's talk about the sheer exhaustion of giving too much.
To really understand this relief, we have to take a look at who you used to be. Because you didn't just wake up one random Tuesday and decide to shut everyone out. For years, you were probably the ultimate caregiver. You were the one picking up the phone at 3 a.m., absorbing everybody else's drama, listening to them vent about work or cry about their exes. You sacrificed your own energy to keep them afloat. It's kind of like your emotional energy is a smartphone battery, and you've got 10 heavy apps running in the background for other people. Eventually, the phone just dies. Actually, psychology has a very specific name for what happens when your tank runs dry: compassion fatigue. It was originally used for healthcare workers and therapists, but it perfectly captures the profound burnout of putting others before yourself thousands of times. You stepped back because your system literally shut down to save whatever tiny bit of psychological energy you had left.
Which leads right into Section 2, the nervous system shield, and how burnout actually becomes biological.
You know that feeling when someone's name pops up on your phone screen and you physically sigh? Yeah, that's not just a passing bad mood. That is your nervous system acting as a highly advanced radar, constantly scanning your environment to answer one critical question: am I safe here? According to Dr. Stephen Porges' polyvagal theory, your brain flips a switch into a protective state when it gets constant signals of stress, disappointment, or feeling used. So by pulling back and reducing interaction, your body is hardwiring a biological response to conserve your emotional energy. It's your own biology stepping in and saying, okay, we've spent way too much energy here, time to retreat.
All right, Section 3, the childhood connection. Let's look at the roots of this intense sensitivity.
So why is your nervous system so finely tuned to this emotional drain? Like, why are you more sensitive to it than the next guy? To understand this, we usually have to trace it back to childhood. If you grew up in a home filled with conflicts, heavy silences, or unpredictable adult emotions, you probably adopted a strict three-step survival loop. Step 1, you meticulously learn to read the room and scan the adult's moods. Step 2, you try to calm the tension, making yourself super small so you wouldn't trigger more chaos. And step 3, you completely sacrificed your own needs and feelings just to maintain a fragile peace. Basically, you had to grow up way too early.
And this early adaptation is absolutely central to attachment theory. Pioneered by psychologists John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth, this theory explains that those early survival tactics actually become your adult relationship blueprint. Because you learned early on that safety is a rare, fragile luxury, you created a really complicated loop in adulthood. You deeply crave connection, so you give and give and give, but you are simultaneously terrified of being emotionally drained. When that familiar drain starts up again, your childhood self-protection instinct kicks into high gear, and you naturally just pull away.
Moving on to Section 4, recognizing the pattern. This is where stepping back becomes a real psychological skill.
See, when you step back, you aren't acting cold or irrational. In fact, this instinct is a highly tuned psychological skill. Neuroscience tells us that the human brain operates like an incredibly complex prediction machine. Over the years, you've collected a massive database on human behavior. It catches those apologies that never come with any actual change. It flags the conditional relationships that somehow only exist when you are doing all the giving. It recognizes those intense bursts of attention that are immediately followed by completely ghosting you. Your predictive brain uses all this past data to accurately warn you, hey, this story's repeating, and the outcome isn't going to change. You walk away because you finally learned to listen to your own data.
Here's Section 5, boundaries versus walls. Let's talk about protecting your peace without locking yourself away. Now, when you start pulling back and shrinking your circle, society might get real loud and accuse you of building walls or locking yourself away. But they are making a massive mistake by confusing two entirely different psychological concepts. Walls are built from fear. They are completely blind. They block everyone out, good or bad, and honestly, they just trap you in the dark. Boundaries, however, are built from self-respect. Think of a boundary like a solid door with a deadbolt and a peephole. It selectively lets in warmth while keeping out the people who just want to dump their toxic energy into your space. It means you finally love yourself enough to guard your energy.
And that brings us to Section 6, the power of solitude and the beauty of a voluntary detox. Once you lock that door to toxic energy, you'll often hear the classic misconception that being alone is the exact same thing as being lonely. But as anyone who has ever stood in a crowded room and felt entirely unseen knows, those are two completely different things. This brings us to constructive solitude. This isn't about hiding away. It's a voluntary choice. When you sit in a quiet room drinking a cup of tea with your phone on silent, completely free from anyone demanding you behave a certain way, that is a pure emotional detox. Constructive solitude reduces social pressure and allows you to recharge in your own sacred space. You're not running away from the world. You're intentionally moving toward peace.
Spend enough time in that peaceful silence, and your entire perspective fundamentally shifts. Before, you might have made endless excuses for people who drained you, thinking maybe they were just tired or struggling. But constructive solitude teaches you a really hard truth. People usually show you exactly who they are by how they treat your boundaries. They show you their true nature by how they react when you finally just say, no. When you stop trying to fix things that were frankly never your responsibility, the clarity is breathtaking.
From the time we're kids, we are taught that a full life means having this massive circle of friends. But is life really measured by the sheer number of people you have around you, or by how safe you feel with them? As you've transitioned from that exhausted 3 a.m. listener to someone who actually honors their own well-being, you've realized not every relationship nourishes you. If your contact list is a little shorter today, but the people on it respect your boundaries, they don't force you to explain your silence, and they actually make you feel safe, you haven't lost anything at all.
Right now,